Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, and welcome to the beta episode and the launch of the new King of Hate podcast, Hate Live. Now here's your host from steamy, humid, disgusting Connecticut, Darkside Phil. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the beta edition of Hate Live. Hate Live is my new podcast. This is something that I've actually wanted to do for quite some time, but I never had streaming capability. And ever since 2 months ago I got that capability, I actually decided that I would adopt a podcast eventually. I just didn't know how I would make it work. And so just so everyone knows, this is the beta version. This is the first episode. This is not by far the finished product. This is the very first time I'm testing this webcam. I'm trying out all the sync and everything, you know, so thank you, whether or not you're joining me on Twitch TV, on my streaming channel, or whether or not you are joining me on YouTube, on the King of Hate vlogs, because you couldn't join me for the live stream. It's perfectly fine. Don't worry, you're not really missing out on anything, especially in this beta episode. What we're going to do is we're going to have an agenda. There's going to be 3 major segments of the show that we're going to be going through. First segment is going to be me kind of giving a little bit of an intro and then talking about all the stuff that I've been up to in this past week regarding what games I've been playing, my opinion on those games, my schedule, what's going to change in the schedule, what's coming up this weekend, and then also other things in the news like conventions I'm attending and E3 and all kinds of stuff. So that kind of stuff was going to be segment 1. Segment 2 is going to be about gaming news. Now this week, the only real gaming news that there is the Xbox One, okay? The big announcement stream that came out on Tuesday, and I'm not going to beat around the bush and talk again about the initial press conference of Xbox One, simply because I already did that en masse way back on Tuesday, and if you haven't seen that video yet, definitely head over to the King of Hate vlogs. You can check it out there. It is very highly viewed for one of my vlog videos. I guess a lot of people were very interested to hear about the press conference and my opinions about it, so definitely check that out if you haven't. What we're going to be talking about today is all of the information that came out after the press conference, okay? So all that stuff that kind of got leaked and then eventually ended up getting confirmed by a lot of Microsoft reps regarding the Xbox One, all those dirty little secrets that no one talked about in the press conference. We're going to discuss those, and we're going to basically I'm going to say my opinion on each one. And, you know, it's going to be a cool opportunity to have a discussion about that. I don't think anyone's had a discussion in one central area about it, so this will be a good way to summarize all these points that have been going on over the course of the week. And then the third segment is going to be back in the day. Now, this is something that I wanted to do since the beginning of this year. It was actually an idea I had last year, and I was never able to properly implement it because I just didn't have enough time. What this is going to be is a segment where I talk about my experiences as a kid, growing up with video games, being a major part engrossed in that video game culture during the time when the consoles were just becoming mainstream and being, you know, adopted into every home, when there were these heavy console wars. Oh, Genesis does what Nintendo don't, and all kinds of stuff like that. We're also going to be talking heavily about arcades and the arcade scene, back when the video game arcades were huge in the 1990s, primarily because of fighting games like Street Fighter 2. I'm going to explain to you all about that kind of stuff. That's what this series is going to be about. So every episode of Hate Live, we're going to have a new segment where we get to discuss that kind of stuff, and I think it's going to be pretty neat, okay? And then finally, depending on how long this podcast runs, we're going to do possibly some Q&A with the people on the stream in the stream chat at the end. So just to give you that thing, it's going to be 3 segments and possible Q&A at the end. There probably will be short commercial breaks between those segments to at least give me a chance to rest my voice, and possibly if I need to do anything like get more drink or use the facilities, etc., etc. So, alright, so I actually have an agenda, because there's so much to talk about on this first podcast that I wanted to make sure that I cover it all and I don't forget anything. And that's why I made my entire second stream tonight, this podcast, so that I actually don't, you know, oh no, I don't have enough time because I have to rush to play a game. It's just for this podcast. It's going to be pretty good, okay? Alright, so first of all, a lot of people might be asking me, well, Phil, your camera looks great. This is what people were just telling me, actually, previous to me going live here on the podcast, that this camera looks way better than the webcam that I was using previously. A lot of people are going to want to know, what webcam is this? Well, this is the Logitech C920 webcam, and it's pretty good. It does 1080p video. What you're watching obviously isn't 1080p because I don't stream or record in 1080p, but it's basically 1080p quality webcam downscaled to fit this 720p window, and therefore it looks really good. People are also telling me that the frame rate is actually really good, that you're seeing me move and it's not like it's dropping frames. It actually looks just as good as my old Sony camera. So I hope that's the case. If that's the case, I'm going to be using this webcam for live streaming, for all kinds of stuff. I could do Ask the King in the future. I could do other projects in the future live stream. So it's a very strong possibility that I may actually be using this camera to do a lot of my vlog style videos. I might even do the weekend preview like this. Who knows? So we'll see what happens with that. But it seems pretty interesting that I found a webcam that's really good. Alright, the first thing that I want to mention before we even start talking about gaming stuff this week is that the poll is live. If you have gone to DSP Gaming in the past day, you'll have noticed that my featured video on the channel is actually not gameplay whatsoever, but it is a announcement that the poll for the next Downtime game is now live. I've selected 10 games spanning pretty much almost every genre of gaming that there is. And it's just such a wide variety. I felt that there's going to be something there for everyone. That someone you will want to see me be playing one of those games, no matter what kind of a gamer you are. So the way that this poll works, it's the first time I'm doing a poll exclusively on YouTube to avoid people complaining that, oh no, you know, you're doing the poll on your website and I don't want to register for your website. I tried to register and there were errors and stuff like that. I said, you know what? If I want participation, I have to make it easy for you, the viewer. So what I've done is made a poll where the 10 selections, I mentioned them in the video, and they're all annotations on the video that you can just click, and all you need to do is click, and you voted for the game that you want to see me play. Now, if annotations don't show up on your videos for whatever reason, like let's say you're on a mobile device, a smartphone, you can go to the description of the video, and I've also listed the games there. Now, you can vote for multiple games, and, you know, I would hope that people wouldn't abuse the system, but I mean, if they click 1,000 times and they watch the video 1,000 times, it's going to have fake views. However, the thing is, YouTube actually has changed their algorithm of the way that views are recorded. You have to actually watch a certain percentage of a video in order for it to count as a view. So if there's some asshole just there clicking refresh or pressing F5, it's not going to count as views. They have to watch the whole video, refresh it, watch it a whole video again, and refresh it. How many people are really going to do that? Probably not many. So I don't think we're going to have much cheating in this poll. Now, you might also be asking yourself, well, okay, I voted, but now I want to see how the other games are doing so I can know whether the game that I voted for is doing well in the poll. How do I do that without accidentally clicking on the video and checking the views and then giving it another view and basically another vote, which I don't want to do? Well, I've created a playlist that has all of these videos in it, and these videos are unlisted, meaning if you didn't intentionally go and find it and watch it, you can't just randomly find it in a search on YouTube or even in my videos listing on my channel. It doesn't show up. So you can check out the playlist. It's on my main channel. It's a new playlist called, I think it's a Downtime Games May 2013 or something like that, and that's how you can actually get that information on what's doing what in the polls. When I last checked a few hours ago, everything was frozen at 300 views because, as you know, YouTube has this safety feature where once a video hits 300 views, it puts some algorithm into it to check to make sure that the views are legitimate before it updates the views. I fully expect it's going to be locked and incorrect. Even when it updates, it's still going to be incorrect for at least a day. So I would say probably Saturday, honestly, will be the first time you'll be able to look at that playlist and see the real views on the videos and see what game is in the lead. Okay. Alright, so now let's start talking about all the games and stuff that I've worked on this week. Sorry. I got an odd message that I didn't expect I was going to get. Sorry about that. I'm going to flip my phone over so I don't get distracted during this. That's going to be a big part of the podcast. I got to learn not to be distracted by stuff. Alright, so this week, what have I been up to? Well, since I returned from my vacation in Philadelphia last week, I had to catch up with a game that I had missed during that week, but then I also jumped into this week's new releases. So I've done a full playthrough of Metro Last Light, which, by the way, I really enjoyed. I knew nothing about the game going into it. I played it, and I thoroughly enjoyed the game. So I've got a full playthrough of that up on DSP Gaming, my YouTube gaming channel. Definitely check that out. Plus, I did review the game on Monday on the King of Hate Vlogs, my vlogging channel as well. So you can see the review, you can see the playthrough, whatever you want to see. It's all live. Really liked that game. And by the way, I held on to the game because there was an announcement this week that there will be some major story DLCs coming this year. And I said, well, I'm going to hold on to the game then, not trade it in. Tuesday, there were two new things. Resident Evil Revelations, which was the console adaptation HD conversion of Resident Evil Revelations. That was a Nintendo 3DS exclusive game last year. And also there was the Batgirl DLC for Injustice. Now, as of today, I have completed my stream of Resident Evil Revelations, the campaign. I beat it today. So those videos will be uploading over the next several days into next week. Not yet tomorrow, though, and we're going to talk a little bit about that when we talk about my schedule, which is coming up. But right now, they're actually literally going live right now. As we're streaming right now, and as I'm doing this podcast, I've already scheduled uploads to go live on YouTube, so you can just head over there tonight and you can watch the latest batch of videos. But I really enjoyed that game too, albeit there was a bug or two that was a little annoying, but the game is a really solid Resident Evil game. It's more to the roots of the series, where it's more survival horror rather than run and gun and have a co-op partner helping you out. It's up to you. Mostly because the AI sucks in the game, and the AI guy just stands in the corner doing nothing while you do all the work. But it's a really good game, and I hope that a lot of people will check out the playthrough. I know a lot of people probably, if they were interested in the game, either already saw a playthrough of the 3DS version last year, or maybe they played the game themselves. But I would still, appreciate it if you are interested in Resident Evil and survival horror, if you gave it a look, because it is a pretty good series. Later on this weekend, there's a possibility that I will be trying out the raid mode of Resident Evil Revelations, which is the multiplayer mode, where it's like a team up against a gauntlet of enemies. You're trying to get points and combos and stuff. Very similar to Mercenaries with previous Resident Evil games, so that might be coming this weekend. And then we had the Batgirl DLC, which I played Tuesday night. Tried out Batgirl in the lab, which is basically putting her in training mode and trying out all kinds of different things, trying to figure out her combos and such. Then I jumped onto the arcade ladder, and then I played some online gameplay against people, and it was very hit or miss. Some people I did really well, others I did badly, but it was kind of funny because it really wasn't because of the character. It was because I just couldn't fucking block anything because some of my connections were terrible, so it was just one of those nights, I guess. Especially being that it was the night of the release of that DLC. Probably everyone had come home from school and work. Oh, we want to try out Batgirl. Jumped online and lagged up all the servers. So that footage, some of it is already live. I still have, I think, about 19 matches left of the multiplayer to upload. I'm going to upload probably another 9 to 10 matches tonight, and I believe if there's any left, that'll be over the course of the weekend as well. So that's what you can expect regarding the Batgirl DLC. So, what's coming up in the next few days? Well, tomorrow, John Rambo is visiting. We're going to film a new Smark, guys, the first one in 2 weeks. So that's our wrestling commentary show, if you're not familiar with it. That'll be uploaded to the King of Hate vlogs, okay? And then in addition to that, we're also going to do co-op gameplay of a few things. First of all, we have SGC coming up. SGC is Screwtack Gaming Convention. It is a major convention that has just restarted. It happened back in like 2008, 2009, but then it went away for a while. Now it's back. This is a convention by gamers for gamers. It's a bunch of gamers that are going to meet up, hang out. There's going to be a cool gaming area where you can play all kinds of different games. There's going to be tournaments and competitions. There's going to be a bunch of panels from gaming-related people on the internet like myself. I'll be there to have a panel, but, Angry Video Game Nerd, and those kind of people are going to be there to hold panels. Adam Sessler is a guest. I guess he's going to be talking about games and stuff. I'll be making fun of him and how bad he was at God of War Ascension and how he yelled about the Trials of Archimedes when I one-shotted it. That'd be funny if I just walked up to him and was a total dick. I one-shotted the Trials of Archimedes, you fucking scrub, and I would just walk away. But anyway, yeah, there's going to be other stuff going on there too. But one of the things that's going to happen at SGC is the Iron Man of Gaming. This is a competition spanning the gamut of the gaming world, meaning you're going to have modern games, you're going to have classic games, and it's an overall gaming competition to see who's the best. And there's, I think, 6 different segments, 6 different games that are known, and then the finals are a mystery game. So it's basically anyone's game once you get to the finals. The games that are going to be played are very old, such as Tetris on the NES, Super Mario Kart for the Super Nintendo, and they range to like the middle of the road, like Halo 2, and then to more modern games like Sonic 4, NBA Jam, the new one that was just re-released like a year or two ago. So the games are pretty varied. Oh, and of course, I forgot, Super Street Fighter 4 Arcade Edition 2012 is also going to be in there too. So I'm entering this competition, but John and I realized if we're going to do anything with this, we need to practice. So John and I are actually, over the next few weeks, when we do co-op, are going to take some of the time of the day to play these games that are actually going to be in the Iron Man of gaming. Now, some of them have established rules, like for Mario Kart, it's do a certain stage and get the best time. That's, you know, okay. Some of them are less concrete, like Sonic 4, they haven't named the stage or what the challenge is going to be yet, and I think that's because they want it to be more of a toss-up rather than someone just practicing hardcore and then nailing it at the tournament. So, very interested to see what's going to happen with that, but John and I are going to pick a certain amount of games every week that we're going to be playing. I don't know what we're playing this week, but we're going to see what happens with that, so you can expect to see us be playing maybe some classic games, maybe some random games, whatever games are in the Iron Man of gaming. You're going to see us doing co-op this tomorrow, and then also we may also do more Battle Block Theater because we're really liking that game. Regardless of the fact that the streams and the views on YouTube are kind of shitty, we don't care. We're having fun with the game, and the co-op is about having fun, and that's what we're going to do. So that's coming up tomorrow. Now, Saturday should be a special day because Saturday's going to be a special, special day because first of all, it's going to be the debut of a stream that I think a lot of people are going to want to see, and it's going to be pretty unique compared to a project that I've been doing similarly. But before that, the first stream on Saturday, it's up for debate what it's going to be. I might do Resident Evil Revelations raid mode, or I might start this new game, this Call of Juarez. The Gun, whatever the fuck it's called. It came out this week, and no, I didn't know it was coming out. I heard nothing about it, but some people have bought it and said it's kind of short, but it's actually a pretty entertaining game and has an interesting story and characters. So I may be trying that on Saturday. And then Saturday night, that's right, it's the premiere of Demon's Souls. So I already played Dark Souls. Now we're starting Demon's Souls, which I've never touched. I know nothing about. People said that I might have an easier time with Demon's Souls because I played Dark Souls already, although some people are saying, no, Demon's Souls is a harder game. You're going to have even a harder time with it. So that's going to be nuts. That's Saturday night. And then Sunday and Monday, I may be doing more of, like I said, Call of Juarez. I may be doing other things. I'm not sure. I don't want to set it in stone because it's kind of like filler time. And honestly, I don't want to use the poll to determine what game I should play yet, because I don't want to jump the gun on that. I want to give it some time to have people vote. So we'll see what happens, but I promise you, Sunday and Monday, we're going to have entertaining content, and then leading into next week's releases, which I'll talk about in the weekend preview this weekend, so I'm not going to go any further into detail about that. However, what I would like to do at this point is talk about a few other odds and ends that are coming up. Now, I already mentioned Screw Attack Gaming Convention. I will be attending. John Rambo, Panda Lee, OJ's girlfriend Carol Ann. We're going to have a panel. We're going to have 2 vendor tables with all kinds of cool stuff. Carol Ann is bringing all the stuff from Athena's Wink, which is all the cool anime and gaming-related hats and accessories. OJ will be there selling his candles. John and I will be there promoting our stuff. I'm going to have my laptop. I'll probably have like some montage trailers and things to show people who I am, and business cards. Leanna's going to be there. She might have she actually had these gaming-related earrings that she made a year ago for Too Many Games, and she may bring them. She hasn't decided yet whether or not she kind of wants to be there to have to sell stuff the whole time or not. But she's going to be there too, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So anyway, first of all, it's from June 21st to 23rd, 2013. So it's in a month. Literally, it's next month. It's in the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas. And the registration is still open. If you do want to register for it, what I would suggest is there is a special link that you can use that gives us credit, meaning that we told you about the event and you're coming to hang out with us, maybe attend the panel, maybe you want to just meet and greet, get something autographed. We're totally open and cool to that. And what we want to do is have people use this special registration link so that we get credit for your registration, and the more people that we get credit for, the chances are better that next year we'll actually get re-invited to SGC, which obviously would be awesome to have our foot in the door as a guest every year at this event. So the link I'm going to put in the description of this video on YouTube. Obviously, if you're watching this on live stream, I can't do that, but what I would say is check out the description of any one of the videos of my weekend previews, or any of my vlog style videos on the King of Hate vlog should have that in the description. And I'd appreciate it if you'd use that link so that we at least get some credit, okay? Unfortunately, I do know there were a handful of people that registered before the link was ever available and I ever mentioned it, and there's just nothing I could do about that except tell, the guys at Screw Attack, hey, a couple people did register beforehand, just so you know. Okay. Alright, the next thing I want to talk about, E3. Because a lot of people were like, gee, Phil, you went to E3 last year, it was awesome, we loved your coverage, are you going again this year? I finally got an answer from Machinima yesterday. I talked to this guy who used to be the head of the partner program, and I don't really hear from him that much anymore. And I emailed him about it, and he said basically he's not in that position anymore. He works with a different part of the partner program, but to his knowledge, no, there's nothing going on this year whatsoever where the partners are getting sent to E3 through Machinima. Okay, that doesn't mean you might not see Machinima partners there. It means that they might have found other ways to get there. Like I'm sure Toby Turner probably he's doing something for EA or something because he's part of their promotional group or whatever. But unfortunately, it looks like nothing is going on with E3 this year in regards to me getting there. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to be covering E3. What I'm going to be doing is covering it from home, like I've done previous years. And probably what I'll be doing is covering it in depth because I really feel this E3 is going to be one of the biggest, most important E3s ever because you've got the initial real information coming out about the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. Plus, we finally are going to get some information on the first-party titles for the Wii U that people might actually want to play. So, basically, I think there's going to be an insane amount of content from E3 this year. And so what I'm going to be doing that E3 week is not only playing The Last of Us, which is the newest game that'll be out that week, the new release that everyone wants to play, one of the biggest, most hyped games of the year, but I'm going to be pairing that with covering E3, doing live streams like this, where once a day I go through all the coverage from E3, we talk about it together, and we discuss what I think's good, what I think sucks, and basically what I've done every single year for E3, we're going to be doing again. And I think that's really cool, and I think people will enjoy that. So that's coming up from home. I won't be at E3, but at least I'll still be covering it. The last thing I want to talk about in this segment, before we take a short break and we move on, is the Machinima app on Xbox Live. We have a major update, okay? So it was funny because I haven't mentioned this in a while, and weeks ago, we're talking like the middle of April, Machinima first contacted me and told me they're putting out an app on Xbox Live that you could download and see all the Machinima content, and that they were going to feature my channel because I am one of the top partner channels, that I was going to be featured on there, and people would be able to go there to watch my content, and in addition, I would get credit for the views. And this is different than previous, because previously, if you just used the YouTube app on Xbox Live to watch my content, I did not get credit for those views. So it was an awesome thing. It's a win-win. It's a cool new thing. It's a new way for me to get my name out there. People will be able to see me for the first time. They even had me film a special promo video, which I submitted the last week of April. And then it never happened. It was supposed to launch the last week of April, never did. Then it ended up launching in early May, but my stuff was not on there. And I asked them, gee, what are you doing with this? When is my stuff going to be on there? And they told me it was going to be May 7th. May 7th came and went. My stuff was still not on there. My fans, some fans were upset because they were actually writing me on Twitter and sending me emails and saying, Phil, we're looking for you on there. You're not on there. This is baloney. Why'd you tell us you were going to be on there? So it made me look kind of bad. And I went back to Machinima, and they said, well, it seems like it's taking longer than we anticipated to get everyone's information on there. However, in the meantime, they actually sent me this cool thing that they want me to do an unboxing video on to promote the app. And I said, well, I'm not going to unbox it until the app has my stuff in it, because that would be stupid. Oh, here, I'm promoting the app. By the way, I'm not on there, so why would you care? So I've been holding off on doing this unboxing video, and I got an email yesterday from Machinima. Gee, are you going to do the unboxing video as we discussed? And I'm like, I already told you, I'm not doing it until my stuff's on there. So I wrote them this I'm going to be honest, it was kind of a strict, kind of harsh email, because I was upset. I mean, this is something that's made me look bad for the past month and a half, where they keep promising that I'm going to be on there, so I keep telling everyone, and then I'm not on there. And it's disappointing for a lot of people, because they want to be able to see this new app and explore it and see my stuff on there. And it's kind of a bait and switch, where they say, oh, you're going to get it. Oh, nope, didn't show up. Don't worry, we'll get it up there. Oh, it's going to come. Nope, you're not getting it. And then finally this weekend was the last straw, because they actually took that special promo vid that I filmed to advertise the app, and they put it on the app, but they didn't put any of my video content on it. So it was just my advertisement for the app, and none of my content was on the app, so it was a complete waste of time. And then they featured it as like a main thing of the app, and I was like, well, this is a waste. Like, what the hell? Why did they do that? So anyway, the bottom line is, I wrote them this email last night. Mysteriously, this morning, I go on the app. Lo and behold, I'm in there. I have a spot. When you go in there, I think about 3,000 of my videos from DSP Gaming are currently visible. Now, I'm not available in the search right now. The search isn't even working for partners yet, but it's looking like they're very slowly loading in my content. So if you are an Xbox Live user, if you are someone who watches videos on Xbox Live, check it out on the Machinima app. I'm now finally on there. Once they get all my stuff loaded in there, then I'll be doing this unboxing video and we'll go from there. But what an ordeal to get this app up and running and to get all my content on it. I don't know what took so long or what they were thinking. But anyway, yeah, it's pretty... I think eventually in the long run it'll look pretty good, okay? So I'm just happy because at least it's another way for me to get free promotion. Maybe some new people will check out my videos, and maybe I'll be exposed to a whole new audience. Who knows? Okay, so that's it for the first segment of Hate Live. We're going to take a few minutes commercial break here. If you're on Twitch, you're going to see the commercials. If you're not on Twitch, if you're just on YouTube, you're just going to see a splash screen for a little bit here. I'm actually going to go refill my drink, rest my voice for a few minutes. We're going to come back, and we're going to talk all about the Xbox One, and we're going to talk about all the things that were revealed this week that were not discussed in the initial press conference that a lot of people are kind of upset about. But I think I'm going to discuss them in an intelligent manner and try to see all perspectives so that we kind of get a fair and, you know, a fair opinion and a fair view of what exactly is going to happen when this console launches. So, all right, I'm about to go on a short break, everyone, so I'll be right back, but stick around for the next segment of Hate Live. That's the wrong one. That's the wrong one. I'm clicking on everything wrong. Hold on. Here we go. Haha. Okay, so we're back, and now we're in segment 2 of this beta podcast of Hate Live, and what we're going to talk about in this portion of the show is gaming news. Now, normally, if there was a lot of gaming news going on, I would discuss a lot of different topics. In this case, this week, there really is, outside of Metro Last Light getting DLCs announced, so I do want to mention that. Now, Metro Last Light is going to have several story-based DLCs. This was announced this week, so if you have the game, don't trade in your copy. There's going to be some great DLC coming up. And let's face it, those guys at 4A Games who got treated like complete shit because they work in the Ukraine and they worked in some of the worst game development conditions ever, they deserve some more money for their hard work, and I think that everyone should check out the DLCs regardless. Okay, so the second segment is going to be about gaming news. But this week, the big topic, the one that everyone's talking about, Xbox One. The big announcement press conference came out on Tuesday, and it lasted about an hour, and some stuff was revealed, some stuff was talked about that people were like, why are they focusing on this? There's a lot that can be said about it, however, I've already said it, okay? After watching the press conference, I did a live stream here on Twitch and also uploaded it over to YouTube, and it's gotten really good views since I uploaded that on Tuesday. If you haven't checked it out yet, if you want to know what was discussed in the press conference and my feelings about it, go check that out over on the King of Hate vlogs on YouTube, okay? But what we're here to talk about today is the other stuff. The stuff that just hours after the press conference ended, PR reps basically started talking to the media who were interviewing them, and all of a sudden, all of this new information regarding the Xbox One was revealed that was like shocking to some people, that was just like confusing to others, and there seems to be a lot of mass confusion and just a lot of, I don't know, just people are unsure about this console and what's going to happen with it. So, I wrote them down, and what we're actually going to do in this second segment of Hate Live is we're going to talk about each one a little bit. We're going to see, you know, how that would affect things, and we're going to basically see, is this going to negatively affect the console, or is this something that's a positive thing? So let's get started. So, one of the big things, okay, one of the biggest things that everyone wanted to know about this console, because it was rumored for months on end before this press conference ever happened, was, does this game always need to be connected, or does this console always need to be connected to the internet to actually work, okay? Does it have the capability to work offline? Can you play single-player games offline? Or is it like, for example, some of the recent releases like SimCity, or last year's Diablo 3, where those games, just to play the single player, you had to be online, which caused massive fucking problems because so many people wanted to play those games. The servers were crashing, the servers were down. Oh no, you started a city on one server, but now that server doesn't work for you anymore. Guess what? You can't migrate your city from one server to another on SimCity. So this always-on kind of mentality, it doesn't work. And a lot of people know that, and they're wondering, is this console going to have that? Well, the answer that we're getting from people is, I don't know. It's completely uncertain whether or not you need to be online all the time, part of the time. From what Microsoft has been saying, every time they get this question, they kind of beat around the bush and don't answer it plainly, which basically makes me wonder if it is going to be an always online console. But what they've said is, this console was designed for people who have internet usage. Like, that's nice. So what the fuck? So what if someone has bad internet, or they don't play multiplayer games, you're not going to let them use your console? Very unclear. From what we're to understand, ownership of games will be tied to your Xbox Live login. So you need to have an Xbox Live login in order to actually enable your games. Question being, okay, that's well and good, but what if you don't have internet? Can you even create an Xbox Live login? And the answer is probably no. The other issue is, well, the other thing talking along the same lines is, if it's always online, which people don't want because they know it's always, you know, constantly on, well, anyway, I'm losing my train of thought now, but basically, the answer is unclear. The best answer that we've gotten from Microsoft is, you need to at least plug in the console to the internet at least once every 24 hours. To which I say, so, even if you're not using it online, you have to actively plug in an Ethernet cable or use the wireless to log into some internet every 24 hours, or else it will totally brick the system. What's it going to do? And it was funny because Wired Magazine straight up asked a Microsoft rep this question, and he said he didn't have all that information at this time. To which I say, well, that's bullshit then. That makes absolutely no fucking sense. You know, you need to answer these questions. If you have PR reps that are out there trying to answer, he should have had the information. So the answer is, no one knows whether or not it's an always online console. At the very least, we're being told, well, this console was designed for people who have internet. And it's like, well, that's not everyone. Not everyone plays games online. That's not really fair. And if that's the case, maybe those people just shouldn't buy it. I don't know. So we're hoping to get more details on that at E3. The next thing was we found out, it's very in black and white, we were answered this. You cannot, I repeat, you cannot upgrade the hard drive inside Xbox One. It is a 500 gigabyte internal hard drive, and unlike Xbox 360, it's not something you can just pop off and replace with a bigger one, or, you know, do anything like that. They've even said the only way that you can upgrade the storage capacity of this thing is to get an external device. So an external hard drive that you plug in through USB you could use with it, but you can't actually upgrade the internal hard drive like previous Xboxes. For me, I don't think that's a big deal, especially with the cost of storage has dropped so dramatically in the past few years. I just bought a whole slew of external 2 terabyte hard drives for less than 80 bucks each, I think. So that makes sense. If you're the kind of person who's going to constantly be downloading games, and you're constantly going to be downloading you know, music and all kinds of stuff, and you need a lot of storage space, okay, well then get an external hard drive and it'll work. Now, I hope that's the case, because I don't know if anyone knows this, but if you actually just plug an external hard drive into the Xbox 360, it doesn't work. You have to, like, reformat the damn thing to work, and even then, you can't transfer willingly files back and forth. You can have the Xbox saved to it, but you can't have files go from the hard drive to the Xbox. So hopefully they fix this issue with the Xbox One, but I don't know if it will be. Apparently, I don't know if this is 100% confirmed or not, but again, it's being stated that modern headsets, so even my most recent headset here, you know, the Triton HD Pro Plus, which I've used all today for my gaming and my live streaming, and the actual, this one over here, which I've been using for the past couple days, this is actually in a case, but the Astro A40s, they're saying these won't work. Now, wait a minute. These are like the newest headphones. Everything uses the same thing. Optical out, optical audio out. What the fuck is the Xbox One using that it doesn't work with optical out audio? Like, what were they thinking? Now, no one's seen the back of the Xbox One. We don't know what connections exactly are going to be on it. If it's only HDMI, okay, there's the possibility that you can have HDMI run into a splitter that separates the audio. And in fact, I actually own one of these. I can show you what I mean. I actually purchased one of these in anticipation that I would possibly have problems with the headphones. See, now check this out. It needs a power adapter, but right here, you take HDMI in, and then on the other side, HDMI out, but it actually rips the audio from the HDMI there and creates an optical audio jack. So if it doesn't have optical audio out, I could probably still use my headphones with it, because this device that you would have to buy separately actually will rip the audio from it. But that's bullshit if they're taking away the optical audio jack and saying, well, we understand that all of these you know, headphones use the same thing. Well, fuck it, we don't care. We're just going to make a device that doesn't have it. Like, that makes no fucking sense whatsoever. Really stupid. So I guess we'll just have to judge and see what happens once it actually does come out and go from there. But it's basically, people are saying it's confirmed that it's not going to have like an optical audio out jack or something. The next point. The huge used games debate. Okay, now this is a huge one. Because as you know, there's an entire industry. An industry based on used games. Okay? So we're talking GameStop. We're talking Best Buy has a huge presence in the used game market now. There's a lot of companies that all they do is they take the trade-ins, they resell it, they make a huge profit. Well, Xbox apparently has, as I said earlier, has this new thing with the Xbox One. So let me explain. Basically, when you install, when you buy a game, any game, You take the game disc out, you put it inside your Xbox One. The Xbox One is going to install that game to the Xbox One just like a PC would, okay? And then technically from then on, you don't ever need the disc again. However, when you install it, it actually is installing it to be associated with only a certain Xbox Live account. So whatever account you're logged in under is the account that has the permissions to play that game. Now, from what I'm to understand, you only get one license per game. It's not like you can give that game to 5 people and they can all install it and use it. It's only legally a license for one person to use the game. So, if that is the case, okay, what happens if you play the game, okay, you beat it, you're done with it. You go trade it in, and then the next person gets it, what's going to happen? They're going to go to install it, and it's going to say, well, the license has already been assigned to someone for this particular copy of the game. Do you want to purchase a license? To which someone might say, well, yeah, okay, I'll purchase the license. And the big controversy right now is, what is that fee going to be? Okay. Is it going to be the full cost of the game? Are you going to make someone who bought a used game then pay the full price of the game to you have the licensing fee to play the game? If that's the case, you have effectively destroyed the used games market. You have just obliterated it. Because now used games are worthless. If I have to, why would I buy the game and then pay full price for the game when I could just pay full price for the game and get it anyway? So I think a lot of people are going to be pretty terrified, especially people who work at GameStop. Because what are they going to do? Like, a big portion of their business is used games. No one's going to be doing used games for the Xbox One. Now, the flip side of that is, okay, forget the used game scenario. What about the scenario of, I'm going to my friend's house. Let's say I have Street Fighter 4, and I want to play it with my friend, but he doesn't have Street Fighter 4. So I take my copy of Street Fighter 4 to his house, and we want to play together. Can we? Microsoft has directly answered that and said, yes, you can. Because what you would do, you would log in on his console as yourself, whatever your Xbox Live tag is, and that tag has the permissions to play that game, so you'll then be able to install the game to your friend's Xbox and play the game together. However, once you leave, if you're not logged in, you won't have permission to play that game, okay? Now, an interesting quirk here, this is an interesting quirk that I've been thinking about, is that when my friends have come over to my place and signed into Xbox Live, their gamer tag stays listed on my Xbox. And it's possible that if I just knew my friend's password, that I could log into his Xbox Live account and play any game under his account. So is it possible that if one person could give out their password to everyone, and literally everyone could just log in as them and play multiple games? The issue there, of course, would be, does Xbox Live allow multiple logins under the same name, or is it going to detect, oh, Darkside Phil signed in at 7 different consoles, there's no way he's at 7 places at once, disable those accounts or whatever. So it's very, very, very up in the air, gray area. No one's sure how this is going to work, and Microsoft is not being straightforward about it. Now, here's the thing. Someone did it right straight up in Microsoft face and listen, what about the used game market? Because if what you're describing is exactly how this is going to work, you're going to destroy it. To which one of the Microsoft reps said, we do have a plan to implement that used games will work on the Xbox One. However, we're not ready to talk about that plan yet. And it's like, what? Then why announce the console? If you only have a half-assed amount of information, don't do a press conference that's going to raise a bunch of questions. Wait till you have all the answers and then do the press conference. But whatever, this is what they're saying. They claim they have a plan for used game implementation, but they're not saying what it is right now. So I guess we're going to see what happens in the next coming few months. Hopefully they'll say something at E3, but I doubt they will. Alright. And the last point, which is probably, out of all these, might end up being the deal breaker for a lot of people. Xbox One must have the Microsoft Kinect connected to it and functional at all times. I'm going to repeat that. When you buy the Xbox One, it comes with a new version of the Kinect. It is mandatory that you have that Kinect plugged in and functional at all times. So what they're basically telling you is the controller may not even work to go through the dashboard. You have to use the Kinect. To which I say, that's stupid. Not everyone wants to flail their arms. Not everyone wants to give fucking voice commands. There's nothing wrong with this. The controller to control your gaming system. That's the point. And I think the problem here is they're trying to basically turn the Xbox One into something that it's not. It's not going to be just a gaming system. It's going to be your entertainment hub in the house. So, yeah, if I'm going to watch TV and I'm going to be using Skype and all those things, maybe I need to connect. But if I don't want to use it, why the fuck do I need to use it? Okay? Now, the major concern here for a lot of people is that, and by the way, it looks like my stream chat has locked up because it looks like my internet went down again. Yes, it did. So I'm going to restart my laptop, everyone, just so you know. I apologize there. The major vocal point of concern here is basically exactly what I said the day when I hooked up my Kinect for the first time. The fucking thing doesn't work in a small space. It needs a lot of space to work properly, okay? You've seen me, picture in picture, trying to play the Kinect games. You've seen me fail with 100 feet of room in my living room here, over here in the corner. It just doesn't pick me up. And it makes no fucking sense because they claim that you're supposed to be able to play it in like 10 feet of space. It's a blatant fucking lie, okay? It just doesn't work well in confined areas. So now you're talking people who don't have huge living rooms, who don't have giant areas to have a Kinect hooked up and working. You're forcing them to use the Kinect. Is it going to work? And this was actually directly asked to a Microsoft rep, one of the reporters. He said, listen, right now it's well known that the current model of the Microsoft Kinect has problems in small confined spaces. What do you say to someone who has a small bedroom who wants to buy the Xbox One? Will it work? And the guy, very stupidly, he shouldn't have said anything. He said, oh yes, it'll work, it'll work. To which the guy, actually, it was funny because in the next line of his article, he was like, well, I guess that maybe this is a better version of the current Kinect, because I know for a fact the current Kinect doesn't work enclosed, you know, in more enclosed spaces. This was again brought up in an article in Wired Magazine, just 2 days ago. Actually, I take it back. Yesterday, they asked this question. I'm sorry, I'm hunching over here. I'm trying to get my laptop set up again. They asked the very same question to another Microsoft rep, and they said, so let me get this straight. You always need to have a Kinect hooked up. And the answer was, yes, you always need to have the Kinect hooked up. And then he said, well, let me ask you a question. So what happens if I break my Kinect by accident? What if the Kinect falls off the TV? That means I can't play games? And the guy kind of like, he didn't have an answer. He's like, da, ba, da, ba, da. He's like, what if my dog walks over and yanks the fucking Kinect off the TV because he yanks the wire? Now I don't have a Kinect. Do I have to go buy another one before I can play more games? And the guy basically brushed off the question. You want to know what that means? That means the answer is yes. That means that this new Xbox is going to require a Kinect to be hooked up at all times, and if it's not hooked up, basically your Xbox is going to be a paperweight. So, what the fuck were they thinking that you have to have a Kinect when you already know that your Kinect doesn't work in a certain scenario? It doesn't work in a more confined space. What the fuck were they thinking to basically say it's mandatory to use this thing? You've just completely isolated your market. You've basically made thousands and thousands of people who might have bought your product now say, well, fuck it, looks like I'm not getting the Xbox One because I don't have enough room for a Kinect to work. So it makes absolutely no fucking sense. And that's another good point too. Someone just brought it up in the stream chat. What about people with disabilities? What about people who can't flail their fucking arms around like assholes and they like to use a controller because it's easy to use? So I really think they've gone off the rails with this fucking thing. Like, what are they thinking? Now, maybe the Kinect can be hooked up and you can just disable it, or maybe you can still use the controller. I don't know. But to say that it's a mandatory to have the Kinect plugged in makes absolutely no fucking sense, and it's confusing as hell to anyone with logical thinking, like a thought process. Do you think logically? Then you know that that's a stupid thing. Who the fuck at Microsoft, who's in charge, doesn't know that that was stupid? I just don't get it. I just don't get it. It makes no fucking sense. So those are the main points that everyone went up through this week regarding the Xbox One, the things that people were kind of upset about, and I completely understand why, especially if you're someone who doesn't have a lot of space to have a Kinect working, who has no interest in having a Kinect working, someone who can't afford to buy new games all the time, and you usually went and waited and bought used games at a discounted price because they were cheaper and that's what you could afford. You know, for people who don't have great internet and don't want to have the Xbox hooked up 24/7 to the internet because they're afraid that, you know, it might screw with your internet, or it might just might not work properly regardless because your internet isn't any good. Or anyone who owns a fucking headset or bought one recently like me. I bought fucking 3 of them, and now you're telling me none of these will work with the Xbox One? Like, are you out of your mind? Dear Microsoft, are you high? That should be the question of the week. Is Microsoft high? Do they have the air filtration system at CEO headquarters or whatever? Does it puff in fucking ganja smoke? Because these are like asinine business decisions that they've made. They're completely isolating their fucking market. It makes no sense that they're doing this. I'm just completely lost. For a person with a business background, who has a business degree, who's worked in the business world, to take a product that everyone loves and take out the things that people love and make it restrictive and make it so that not as many people who used your previous system can use your next one, what the fuck kind of ganja is? It better be some really strong fucking skunk. You know, the ones with those little fucking red hairs and shit? It's gotta be laced with some crazy shit for you to think that this was like a good business decision, because you are fucking stupid as hell. I am a proponent of the Xbox 360. I think that the Xbox 360, despite the fact that it red rings, won this generation of the console war, okay? It did. Because it had a better online presence. More people were developing games for it because it was easier to develop games for. The party system online worked a lot better. So those 3 things alone, I think, really made it the major console this generation. Plus, it came out before the PlayStation 4. Getting that year head start really did help it. For Microsoft to not realize that they have the lead and they need to keep it, and to make these insane decisions, is like, it's cocky. Don't get me wrong, it's cocky, it's ballsy. They think they know that better than everyone else. They think they know what they're doing. But that doesn't mean that they're completely protected. That doesn't mean that things can't backfire. And right now, I'll be honest, after that press conference and all the information that's disseminated this week about the Xbox One, it's been all negative PR for these guys. And I don't know why they think this thing's going to sell after what a horrendous week they've had. If anything, someone should be coming out right now making a public statement saying, don't be alarmed. Some of this stuff might be misconceptions. We'll have more information at E3, but no one's doing that. They're just kind of letting this negativity flow on the internet, and I think it's going to backfire majorly in their face. I don't think they know what the fuck they're doing at this point. It hurts me to see a company who did something so well completely lose their way and change their whole philosophy for no apparent reason. Like, I don't even understand what the reasoning is. We want to be we want to be your source for entertainment. That's why we call it Xbox One, because it's the one place you go for TV, for movies, for music, for Skype, for the internet, and for gaming. Wow. But the Xbox 360 excelled at being a game console and did have some other features. Why don't you focus on being #1 where you make your money, rather than completely changing your product and completely isolating and making the people who were the major proponents of your last product feel like they don't want this next one because you're kind of ignoring them and you're leaving them out. And that's where I'm going to end it. That's where I really feel Microsoft has done, and they're a bunch of idiots at this point. They really need to come out strong at E3 and find a way to save their asses, or else I don't see anyone rushing out to buy the Xbox One. It's going to be another Wii U. It really is. It's going to be another case of the Wii U. Okay. So that's it for gaming news this week. That's pretty much all that happened this week. Next episode, if other stuff has happened, that's what we'll cover in that segment, okay? But, alright, so that's it for this segment of Hate Live. We're going to take a short commercial break, and then when we come back, it's going to be the debut of Back in the Day with the DSP, where I'm going to personally reminisce on some of the cool things in my past from my gaming life that I think a lot of people would like to know about. You're really going to like the subject matter of this one, I get the feeling. You're probably, for the very first time, going to hear about some things in the fighting game world that you would never have even expected, okay? So I'm going to be right back with that. So we'll be back right after these messages. Unless you're on YouTube, then just wait it out. Okay, everybody, welcome to the next segment of Hate Live, the beta edition of the show. And this segment is going to be called Back in the Day with DSP. This is something I've wanted to do for quite some time. A lot of people have been asking me to do it because I thought that they would really enjoy this kind of a deal. What I'm going to do now is use this opportunity to reminisce on my unique past. Me being 31 years old, I actually was growing up at exactly the time when gaming consoles were becoming a more common thing in the home, and they were basically becoming more mainstream, and there was heavy and heated competition between the game consoles, between themselves, but also compared to video arcades. And every time that I do a podcast, there's going to be a different subject. Sometimes I'll be talking about being a competitive player in Street Fighter. Sometimes I'll be talking about just being a home player and about what it was like to play on the Nintendo or on the Genesis, and about the rivalries and the things that happened during that period of time. About Nintendo Power. That was such an awesome magazine and the first one ever to really cover video games in depth, and all kinds of stuff I could talk about. But today, for the premiere discussion, I want to talk about video arcades. I want to talk about Street Fighter and fighting games in particular. And I want to talk about how big it was and what a cultural entity it was at the time. And it was funny because if you played Street Fighter, like, you were this part of this group that, like, got it. Ooh, thing's blowing here, hold on. And, like, you were, like, in the in crowd of these insiders, okay? If you didn't play Street Fighter, no, you wouldn't even know anything about it. So people would be like, oh, you know, Ryu, like, what the fuck are you talking about? Or if it was like, if you knew who Ryu was, it was like, wow, we're this cool, inclusive group of people who are lucky enough to know about Street Fighter. And it actually got so big of a thing, of a cultural phenomenon, to the point where, like, dialogue and lingo were being developed that referred directly to things that happened in Street Fighter 2, okay? But let me set the stage, all right? So all throughout the 1980s, arcades had been primarily based off of those little blips and bloop kind of arcade games. You're talking Dig Dug, Pac-Man, Galaga, Centipede, and by no means am I saying those are bad games, but that was a certain era of gaming, classic gaming. And then all of a sudden, in the late 80s, early 90s, there was this, like, leap in technology. And all of a sudden, when you went to a video arcade, it wasn't about the little bleeps and the bloops and the pixelated graphics anymore. You started to see more sophisticated games come out. And some of the ones that I remember that are kind of jump to mind from those times are like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game. When that game came out, it blew people's minds that it looked like the cartoon. It actually had voice acting from the cartoon. It had stuff that was, like, really looked like you were an interactive version of this thing that was something else. You had games like the Terminator shooting game. That was blew people's minds. That you could go see Terminator 2 at the movies, and they had the fucking game there, and you would sit there with the gun shooting the Terminators, and the graphics were great, and people were, like, blown away by these things. So there was this move towards a more complex, more interesting arcade game, an experience that was different from what you could get at home. You couldn't play these games at home. There was no home console that could handle this kind of stuff. And then Street Fighter 2 came out. And that was like, oh my god, Street Fighter 2, the graphics, the gameplay, a game that had 6 buttons to play it, plus a joystick, a wide array, 8 characters to pick. I mean, we're talking an era where when you put a quarter into a machine, player 1 was stuck with one character, player 2 was stuck with a different one. Now you could widely select from 8 different characters. I mean, there were so many things about Street Fighter 2 that were revolutionary that really made the gaming culture what it was in arcades. And it literally, almost overnight, went from, oh, the arcade's a cool place where once a week, maybe I go there, I play a few games for an hour, and I leave, to every week, Friday night, I go to that goddamn arcade, I cash in my $5 or my $10 in the change machine, I put my quarter up on Street Fighter 2, I wait in line, and I play against these guys for hours. And we just go in a loop playing King of the Hill. Who's the king of the machine right now? Can anyone knock him off? Can anyone knock him off? And you would talk shit, and you would have fun, and it was just a unique experience that I don't think I'm ever going to get back or will ever be emulated again. Because now that everything's on home consoles, anyone can play against anyone. To try to rage quit in an arcade, okay? How funny is it? You're in an arcade, and let's say you're playing Street Fighter, and you're whooping this guy's ass. He can't just pull his fucking Ethernet cord and leave. if he was so angry, he would have to physically just walk away from the game, to which everyone in the arcade would go, "Aha, you fucking pussy, you little bitch. You didn't finish the match. You're a fucking loser. Go back and take your loss, or else do the walk of shame out the front door." So there was none of that bullshit hide behind your computer back then. It was all about being there in person and having the balls to step up to the plate and be a man and understand that if you lose, everyone's going to publicly see you lose, and you have to take that loss and either say, "Fuck this, I'm mad, I'm pissed," and leave, or you could stick around, put your quarterback up, and rededicate yourself to trying to get better at the game and learning strategies to beat that person who just whooped your ass and get better at the game. And so what ended up happening was you would get regulars, okay? And the regulars would become this group of people who would have like this cultural relationship. We all love the same thing. We love the spirit of competition. Similarly, how all people who love football, who love baseball, who love any other sport, Street Fighter kind of became this new sport, only it wasn't a professional sport, it was just an underground thing. And as time progressed, there was almost, I would call it this, I really would, a code of honor around Street Fighter 2. Now, I'm saying Street Fighter 2 because Street Fighter 2 lasted in arcades about 2 years. There were many different upgrades to it that extended its life past the 2 years. But Street Fighter 2 is the game that started it all. And when people were playing Street Fighter 2, after several months of people playing this at a competitive level in arcades, they actually found that there were certain things in the game that were kind of cheap. And what I mean by that is there were easy ways to win. It was a strategy that you could use, and it would easily allow you to get massive damage on your opponent or maybe get the upper hand. And it wasn't necessarily fair. It was just kind of maybe a game exploit or something that wasn't intended to be in the game like it was. And people would get upset when you would use these things, to which these codes of honor were developed where you wouldn't do those things to win. If you did those things to win, you would actually be looked down upon. You would actually be one of like the outcasts. "Oh, that's that fucking guy that comes and does that cheesy shit every week, and we don't like him because he just fucking tried, you know, any tactic to win rather than actually learning the character and learning the game and trying to win with some kind of competitive, legitimate strategy." So there's a couple things in particular that that I do want to address that were considered these unorthodox things when it came to playing arcade Street Fighter back in the day. So the first one was called cheesing. Now you might ask yourself, cheesing, well, what the hell does that mean? That sounds silly. It does sound silly, I agree. Cheesing actually has a couple different meanings, okay? The actual, and this is probably one of the few places on the internet or in the world that you're going to hear this, because I was there for the origination of these terms, okay? Cheesing in particular, very specifically when it first was created, is a term that referred to in Street Fighter 2. You would pick Ryu, or you would pick Ken, or you would pick any character that had a really fast short or jab attack. And you would get really close to the character somehow, and you would literally just mash the fuck out of the button, and it would actually combo into itself. So Ryu and Ken both had this in Street Fighter 2. Their short kick is just a little kick like this. Their foot comes out, and it goes kick, 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 kick. Back in Street Fighter 2, you could just walk up to your opponent and just mash it repeatedly, and if they got hit by the first one, it would link into itself. So you would get a 5-hit combo that they couldn't escape if the first hit connected. It would dizzy them, okay? They would fall back dizzy. You could then walk up and do it again. And if you successfully hit like 5 or 6 hits, it would re-dizzy them, and you could do it again. So essentially what this was a touch of death. It was the easiest touch of death. It was the first touch of death ever in any video game, or any fighting game, I guess I should say. And so people called that cheesing. They were like, now wait a minute. Ryu and Ken, they could do it easier than anyone else. It doesn't seem to make sense. It doesn't even make sense. Like, what other move can you repeatedly just mash into itself and it combos and dizzies and re-dizzies and re-dizzies? It's obviously a game exploit, and I think eventually it did come out that Capcom said, yeah, that wasn't supposed to happen, and if you actually played Champion Edition, they took that out. Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition. They took out the amount of damage and the amount of dizzy that the repeated little shorts and stuff would do. So obviously it was a game exploit that was determined you know, by people playing the game competitively. So they would call that cheesing. And if you did it, you literally would be like shunned out of the fucking arcade. people would be like, get the fuck out of here, man. Like, that's not, you know, we're all here to learn the game and learn our characters and try to be cool and have a competitive community, and you're just going to hog the cabinet because you're just going to walk up and mash a button like this, and it's a really cheap tactic. Like, fuck you. Like, who do you think you are? Get the fuck out of our arcade. And that was kind of the mentality at the time. Now, the term cheesing evolved over time to mean different things. Now, the next meaning of the word cheesing actually referred to throwing. Now, back in the original Street Fighter 2 games, all the way up to Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, when you were thrown, I take that back, it might have been in Super Street Fighter 2, I'm not positive about that. But when you were thrown, you would lose a pretty big chunk of your health. However, you had no way to reverse it. That's right, in the early Street Fighter games, you could not reverse it. If you got thrown, that's it. You're going to take massive damage. And the problem was a lot of the throws would either knock you down or put you into a position where it could be a repeated loop of throws or some kind of a cheap tactic that would lock you down for the rest of the round. So, throws in the beginning were extremely overpowered. And it actually turned out that's why Capcom in later iterations of Street Fighter actually added in methods like the tech throw, where you can either reduce the amount of damage that you get from a throw, you maybe change the way that you land from a throw, like in Super Turbo, if you do a tech, you like kind of float up and land safely rather than getting grounded. Or in later games, they actually made it so that if you tech right away, the throw is just completely canceled, so the throw never even happens. They don't get any damage out of it whatsoever. Then, once throws were kind of dumbed down and weren't as strong as they used to be, then what would happen, the next form of cheesing, per se, was the tick throw. Now, you may say to yourself, what's a tick throw? If you're not heavily into fighting games or Street Fighter, you might not understand what I'm talking about. A tick throw is when you are next to your opponent or nearby your opponent. You do a move that forces them to block, and then while they're still recovering from that block, so they're still in the animation of the block, you are able to throw them. And in the beginning, early Street Fighter, there was no way to reverse it. There were actually setups with certain characters where you could go, walk up, tick, throw, walk up, tick, throw. And they would not be able to get out of it. They would just have no method to escape the tick throw. And you could do it repeatedly to win. And so, with all this issue with throwing and the damage that throwing did and the fact that it seemed to be a cheap game mechanic, there actually in the community became a mentality of the throwback. Now you might say, the throwback, what do you mean? Like, you know, it's a throwback, it's a classic version of something or something from years ago? No. The throwback meant that if you purposely used one of those tactics, like if you used the tick throw, or if you just kept repeatedly throwing someone over and over and over, you would actually be entitled to throw them, to give a throw back. So I would walk up to you, do the tick throw, and the guy would say, yo, let me get a throw back. And you would have to let him get a throw on you. Now, of course, that could be completely one-sided, because what if the throw that you did with your character didn't do as much damage as the throw of their character? But no one cared. Like, this was literally a big thing back then, where this was a major part of the culture of Street Fighter. If you were an honorable player and you got thrown, you would request to get a throwback. And if people didn't give it to you, that person would be shunned. That person would be like, alright, that's the outsider. When he plays, walk away from the machine, let him fucking play by himself till he leaves the arcade, and then we'll start playing again. Now, I'll be honest with everyone, me, myself, personally, I started to see the competitive level that Street Fighter could become, and I disagreed with the throwback premise. I actually thought that the throwback premise was stupid. That if it's in the game, okay, and it's not a blatant game bug or an exploit like that cheesing was with the repeated low shorts, then you shouldn't be, you know, punishing people for wanting to use that game mechanic. I mean, it became preposterous. There were people who were just bitches, I'll be honest. If you would throw them once, oh my god, I can't believe this fucking guy threw me. Everyone come in. This fucking guy just threw me in Street Fighter. What the fuck kind of a guy? See, what a pussy bitch. And you would just want to fucking sock the motherfucker right in the face right there in front of everyone. But you knew that it wasn't worth it because he was just a little fucking low-life bitch. And it was just, it was a weird time to be playing those games because there was all this cultural stuff going on around them. Now, the final leg of our journey of cheesing actually came from Japan. And this was something that was not actually the term was not used like this in the United States, but in Japan it was. In Japan, they actually had an alternate definition for the term cheesing in Street Fighter. In Japan, cheesing was considered when you actually use chip damage or block damage to kill your opponent. Because in Japan, they felt that that was dishonorable. They said, you did not earn that hit. You know, you may have reduced my life, but you did not earn that final hit. And there are actually certain fighting games in Japan where you cannot kill your opponent with chip damage. Now, Street Fighter is not one of them, but there are ones where you cannot kill your opponent. You have to get a clean hit in order to actually win a round. So, in Japan, it was kind of weird because this actually first started happening around the Street Fighter Alpha series. I think it was Street Fighter Alpha 1. Where if you actually defeated your opponent with block or chip damage, you would get an icon, and it wouldn't be the normal victory icon for winning a round. It would be a piece of cheese. And everyone would look at that and say, why the fuck is there cheese on the screen? And no one would understand that because, again, in America, the cheesing was either, at first, using those repeated low shorts to re-dizzy, 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 or it was throwing. So people didn't know what the hell that meant, and then later on it came out, you know, once the Japanese started coming over here and we started having these international tournaments, it came out that the term completely meant something different in the different culture. And that was pretty crazy that two completely different places, thousands upon thousands of miles away from each other, but because we're playing the same game, we somehow came up with the same terms, but the terms meant different things. Like, what kind of a crazy coincidence is that? Well, the bottom line is, eventually, this whole honor system and all that kind of finally faded away into obscurity once Street Fighter finally became a competitive medium. When serious tournaments started to be held, like the majors, like you're talking ECC and Midwest Championships and the whatever they would have on the West Coast, whether it was B5 or it was EVO. Once these tournaments kind of jumped up there and it became like a competitive tournament standard, there no longer was like, oh, you can't throw or oh, you can't cheese. It was pretty much, if it's in the game and it doesn't completely break the game, then it's allowed in tournaments. However, there were still some tactics. For example, in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, there's a few glitches in the game. One with Gambit, where he actually jumps off the screen and flies away and never comes back. So there were people who in tournament would pick Gambit, would get a health lead, and then jump off the screen and never come back, and they would say, well, I won, because time over, I won, I had more life than you. And people were like, no, wait a minute, yeah, we're not going to allow that shit. So essentially, even in the competitive realm of games, there was still cheesing, per se, that was looked down upon. Another good one in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, there's a game bug with Ruby Hart, where if she does a certain move or she has this dash move, if you did it at a certain way and pressed, I forget exactly what it was, you would actually fuck the game up. Like, she would freeze time and no one would be able to move. And again, so if you had the health lead, you would instantly win because no one else could do anything. She would just be Ruby Hart by herself on the screen moving around. And so again, there were these weird game bugs that were attempted to be used in tournaments and people kind of put their foot down and said no. But for the most part, outside of those kind of really abusive game bugs, things that maybe previously would have been considered cheesy were accepted. Throw traps now were accepted. Things that were repeated touch of death loops were now accepted. Infinite combos, which are also very frowned upon in the early days of Street Fighter, were now very accepted in the tournament scene. In fact, people were like, they would applaud and like almost make people their heroes who learned the best combos and who could do these infinite combos and basically win the match with them. So over time, Street Fighter really did evolve from this kind of grassroots, honor among men kind of a boys club kind of a deal into a higher level competitive thing where everything was pretty much accepted unless it was a blatant game abuse or something blatantly that wasn't meant to be in the game. And it was an interesting time because, like I said, you don't have that stuff anymore. Now, you go to an arcade and it's all ticket games. There's no more video games. There's no one there playing Street Fighter. There's no line of people with quarters up waiting to play the game. And it's something that I really feel has been lost. It's a part of culture that we may never get back because now that the game consoles are just as good, if not better, than arcade games, why on earth would anyone go to an arcade to play a video game when you could just sit at home and play everything over the internet? And in my opinion, that's a shame because as you see now, with all these games, you've got rage quitters and lag switch abusers and people who just, because they have such a miserable presence in their real life that they have to try to get their jollies out of cheating or out of doing something underhanded or dastardly online. And because they know they can get away with it, because the person who they're cheating isn't standing right next to them. I've seen fights break out in arcades from people being real assholes and getting just fucking decked, getting kicked in the balls, getting thrown outside. I've seen it. And incidentally, one of my future stories of back in the day is going to be one of hilariously particular case when this happened. And it's a really good story, but I'm going to save that for another time. I'm going to wrap this up by saying arcades, growing up back in the day, that was a lot of fun. It was a completely different experience from anything today. And you really had to be a confident person to have the balls to step up and publicly play someone and publicly take your loss if you took it, and either have the confidence and the courage and the determination to go right back up and put your quarter back up there and play that person again and possibly get your ass handed to you again, rather than just quit like a lot of these fucking assholes do online, these rage quitting pussy ass bitches who can't even take an online loss that doesn't even mean anything. Okay, so that's it for this segment of Hate Live. We're going to take a very short break, and after just a few minutes, we're going to come back with the final segment, which is just going to be Q&A with the people in the stream chat for a few minutes, and then I'm just going to wrap it up, and that's going to be the end of our beta episode of my new podcast, Hate Live. So I hope you're enjoying it. I'll be right back in just a few short minutes to rest my voice. When we come back, we'll have the conclusion. Hang in there. If you're on Twitch, stay tuned for a word from our sponsors. If you're on YouTube, just hang in there for a few minutes. Feel free to fast forward over this quick break. Okay, what's up everyone? Welcome back to our final segment of the first episode of Hate Live. Thank you for joining me for the past hour and a half. I hope that you've been enjoying the show. And now what we're going to do, for the last segment, which could be very quick or long depending on what happens here, I'm going to open up the show to live questions from the stream. We've got some roughly 700 people on the stream. Been pretty consistent 700 people for most of the show. So thank you to everyone on Twitch TV who joined me today for my very first podcast stream. I hope that it was entertaining for you. And so now let's go ahead and take some questions. Here we go. Come on, give me some good questions. Was Tekken in my arcades and or Mortal Kombat? Absolutely. It was funny because at least in this area of the country, like Connecticut, the 3D games were never like huge. So I'm talking Virtua Fighter, Tekken, Dead or Alive. They were there. Every arcade had them, but they weren't like super popular. I would play them. I liked them a lot. In fact, Tekken 2, I learned like every single character. I could was a master of that game. Tekken 3, I actually won a couple tournaments in. So, yes, the arcades in this area had those games. However, Mortal Kombat was fucking huge. Mortal Kombat was the first game that in my local arcade, they got like 3 cabinets of it. So, I think it was when Mortal Kombat 3 hit that they ended up getting 2 or 3 cabinets of Mortal Kombat 3 because the game was so popular. The graphics were digitized, but they were so highly detailed and even better than Mortal Kombat 2's. People were flipping out because they loved the goriness, but they also loved the campiness and the craziness and the zaniness of the fatalities and such. It was the first game that had the run button. So there was a lot of revolutionary stuff about Mortal Kombat 3 that that really changed the fighting game scene, and people really loved it. And Mortal Kombat, like I said, Mortal Kombat, and then of course after that was Killer Instinct. Killer Instinct, that really blew people's minds, the graphics in that game. And that also, I think my local arcade had like 3 cabinets at once of that, and there was always constantly people on all the cabinets. So it was, in this area, it was primarily Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and or Killer Instinct, because Killer Instinct actually was made by Midway, which was rare, and they were all kind of related the same way. But those were the major games. The 3D games were never very popular in this area, unfortunately. Okay. Oh my god, I can't even read the questions. The chat's going so fast here. Ugh. This is on slow mode, and I can't even read the questions because they're coming so fast. I can't even read one before it scrolls off the screen. Holy shit. Did you get anything for winning a tournament at your arcade? There were very few tournaments held at my local arcade. It was more like we would practice and level up at the arcade and really kind of hone our skills, and then we would have to travel. We'd always have to go to New Jersey or Chinatown in New York. Those were really the hubs of where the tournament scenes were on the East Coast. Connecticut was very laid back in that regard. So it was more like we would train in Connecticut, and it would be like going to travel to go to a competition. The one tournament I think they ever held at my arcade was Killer Instinct, incidentally, and I think the guy who won some money. So. Have I tried out my DDP yoga yet? The answer is no. I do have the yoga mat, and I had the DDP yoga. I showed it in a video last week. Unfortunately, this week has just been a whirlwind. Since I got back from being on vacation last week, I had Metro Last Light. Then as soon as I beat that, then I had Resident Evil Revelations. I had the Batgirl DLC. I've got this now. I had equipment constantly coming in. I had 2 sets of headphones show up. I had 2 new webcams show up. My floor actually has more boxes on it now than it did before. My major hurdle to doing the DDP yoga is I don't have room. What I'm going to have to do is clear out all the bar stools and shit from this side of my condo and either put it on that side of the condo or cram it in somewhere. And I'm going to have to try to roll out the yoga mat enough so I can at least lay flat, because some of the yoga exercises require you to start from a laying position and do it that way. But I just have been so busy this week, I've not had time. to be honest, it looks like the next few weeks are going to be busy. I'm hoping that eventually, you know, I do get around to it. But right now, just I haven't had time to rearrange my place to figure out how to do it. But I am going to get to it eventually. Oh my God, so much stuff just went by. I can't even read these. My thoughts about Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 being the biggest fighting game right now, it's shit. The game is shit. And anyone who was like for a serious fighting game player from, you know, back around before Street Fighter 4, who used to actually have to learn techniques and practice, will tell you the game is utter fucking shit. It's a horrible game on a competitive level. It literally amounts to one hit is the end of the game, which is not what fighting games are supposed to be about. And it's a shame because the game was made completely to be flash. That's the whole game. Complete flashiness and looks good rather than plays good on a competitive level. It's a shame that that's the biggest game because when the game came out, most of the people who played Marvel vs. Capcom 1 and 2 hated the fucking game and stopped playing. But now I see all of a sudden people start to come back out of the woodwork because they realize that Capcom isn't going to make a better game and they don't want to be left out of the community. Me? I don't care about being left out of the community because I'm not left out. I quit. I said, I don't like these fucking games. I'm not going to bust my ass wasting time playing games I don't like, especially a shit game like Marvel vs. Capcom 3. So that's my feeling on the subject. Oh my God. Spamming so bad. Will I be watching the Halo TV show? Fuck no. What do I think about Microsoft with the whole situation with indie developers? It's a very unfortunate incident, and it really sucks because there are some games that I feel really should be doing well that are indie games that actually didn't do as well. I just read an article in the latest Game Informer, hold on because I have it, about this very subject. Here it is. Let me just find it in here because there was a game developer who made a game that I played and I really liked, and he said basically it was a complete waste of his time to get it on Xbox Live and that he's not going to seek to get his future indie games on Xbox Live. Let's see who it was here. Shit. I could have sworn it was in here. I swear to God I just read this article. Fuck. This was this right here. Hold on. Sorry, everybody. Okay. Here it is. What game is it? A game that I personally played, but I actually played it on the PlayStation 3 because I think it came out first for that. Retro City Rampage. Remember that game? Now, I never finished it, but it was a neat throwback game. It played like an 8-bit game. The actual developer basically said that he had such a fucking hard time getting it here. It's just so needlessly difficult to get your game out on Xbox Live Arcade. At the end of the day, your game is feature identical on all of the other platforms anyway. The Xbox Live Arcade one was over a year of total work. I don't know how many man-months of work, but it was a lot of time and money to get it on there. Xbox sales really got hurt by Microsoft's policies, which were trying to benefit Microsoft. In addition, they released Retro City Rampage on January 2nd, which statistically is the worst day in history to sell a video game. I don't know why. Maybe the day after New Year's, no one's buying things, but they released it on the worst day ever. But yeah, whatever. It's funny. All indie game developers are now complaining that this new Xbox Live model with Xbox One, you're not going to be able to get your indie games up there anymore without like joining a major publisher. To which I say, I don't know how many mistakes and flubs Microsoft can possibly make. It seems like they're going out of their way to purposely do every single fucking one. But That's unfortunate because indie games, especially now, you see John and I, every month we're jumping on, we're testing out indie games and stuff. We've been having a blast. We've been playing some good ones like Decay, like, what was that one? Arcade Craft. There are some really good ones out there. And if you're stifling creativity because you're hindering these people who don't have a lot of money from publishing their game, shame on you. Shame on you, Microsoft, for only caring about making money from these big companies who are going to do exclusive partnerships with you instead of the little guy who wants to also get his artistic work out there. All right. Oh my God. 3 pages of things just flew by. I didn't get to read one of them full. I'm going to scroll up. Now I'm going to scroll back down. I already answered the question about E3 earlier in the podcast, so if you missed it, watch the podcast on the King of Hate vlogs for that answer. I've already said multiple times, I feel the mainstream media's scoring system and review system for games is innately flawed because they held no responsibility whatsoever to what they say or the score that they give in their reviews. They hide behind the guise of, oh, a review is my opinion and therefore I have the right to say whatever I want in this game review and it's protected by freedom of speech, which is completely wrong because when you have a game review, you have a responsibility to both review it objectively and pair it with your subjective opinion, not to just be a dickhead and give a game a score because you're in a bad mood or because you're a fanboy of a certain genre or a certain, you're not keen on a certain change that a genre of game has fallen upon. I hate mainstream reviewers because people take them as Bible truth when really they should be taking it with a grain of salt and understanding that person gets paid to just rush out an article that they actually might have a worse review than someone who is not doing it for the money because they can actually be honest about what they want to say. Spam, spam, spam. I can't read all these. Retro replay or a retro playthrough of Final Fantasy IX. It's a possibility. Right now, though, I'm struggling to get people interested in anything that's old that I do, and picking a old niche JRPG might not be the best situation. You know what I mean? I don't know. Would I consider playing Fable 1 if people wanted me to? But again, I don't know what people want to see me do these days. Very confusing. Am I currently reading any comics or graphic novels? Let's see. Since and by the way, no, I have pants on, it's shorts. This year alone, I believe I've read the Infinity Gauntlet. I've read a few things. God, they're not coming to mind because a lot of them I read earlier this year. In particular, just recently, I read the entire first 48 issues of The Walking Dead in the Compendium 1, and I'm currently about maybe a third into Compendium 2. So I am like several years into The Walking Dead. I'm like 5 seasons, 6, 7 seasons ahead of what you'll be watching on TV, if they even take the series that far. Outside of that, I haven't read that much this year. Last year I read a little bit more in regards to comic books and graphic novels. Oh, you know what I did read recently? I read one of the Sin City books. It was one of the ones that wasn't in the movie. I can't remember right now. It's not coming to mind what the hell it was. But it was one of the ones that wasn't in the movie. I read one of those chapters. Am I getting the GTA 5 Collector's Edition? Yes. Actually, when it was announced, I guess people messaged me today about it. I don't know if it was announced today. I knew I couldn't get to GameStop today, so I actually just pre-ordered it online. And they're supposed to mail it to me that week. Now, I don't know if I'm going to get it for launch day. So what I may actually do is just pick up my regular copy of GTA 5 that I've already have reserved at my local GameStop, play that, and then when the Collector's Edition comes, keep all that swag and do a cool big unboxing. But I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. How do I decide whether or not I trade in a game, and what are some games that I held on to for a long time? It's a very simple consideration. Is this a game that, number one, has replayability? Number two, does it have maybe a mode that I could do fan appreciation with my fans, that they might want to play with me? Number three, are there any announced major DLCs that I'm going to want to play? And number four, is this a game that forever, whatever reason, I may want to come back to? So I'll give you some examples. Right now, looking over here at what I have, let me take a look. I've got, well, I had Deus Ex Human Revolution for quite some time because they had announced that there would be multiple DLCs, but then it turns out there was only one. So after the one was released later on that year, I actually traded it in. I see, I'm trying to see. I still have, well, I had Dishonored, but I didn't have time to play the DLC on that one. I had Dark Souls. I held on to for years because I quit it. I couldn't take it at the time. I was so frustrated. As you know, at that time, I didn't have the capability to do live streaming or anything like that. And, you know, since I didn't have the ability to do that, I didn't have the ability to be interactive with people and have people come and join my game and help me out. And I wasn't liking the game, but I always knew that the game was good and that maybe one day things would change and I would want to go back to it. So here we are in 2013. I'm live streaming, great quality. I've got direct capture capabilities. I've got the technology now finally, and I decided to go back to it. So that was a special situation. I had Mass Effect 3 for quite some time because I knew there was going to be multiple DLCs coming out for that I was going to want. And then finally, once the final story-based DLC, the Citadel, just came out and I finished it, I traded that in. A lot of the times I hold on to games that have collector's editions because you can't trade in the collector's edition. You know what I mean? If you don't have just the box and the game, it's hard to trade in. Sometimes you can just trade in a loose disc, but you know, a lot of the times with the collector's editions, I end up holding on to all that stuff. So that's really the major considerations. Now, obviously, for games with multiplayer like Street Fighter, things that I may go back to at later dates, those are the kind of games that I've held on to. Here's another question. Earlier tonight, I got the question, will I be doing a Superman marathon for the Man of Steel movie? And I answered, no, I will not be, because that actually is coming out E3 week. And E3 week, I'm going to be busy with The Last of Us, as well as with covering E3. So there's no way I'm going to be able to do a Superman marathon. Someone just asked me, am I going to be doing a Wolverine marathon for the new Wolverine movie that's coming out the end of July? That could be a possibility. I actually do know of a few good Wolverine games that maybe I could play through and would be enjoyable. I guess we'll see about that, but it's a maybe for now. How will I do Saturdays with John when I move? Well, I think it's a pretty simple answer. Smart guys, you're looking at it. If I move out of state or too far away from John that we can't meet up at weekends to do our stuff, it's going to be a podcast like this where we're both calling in or whatever, and we're doing it together like this. For co-op gameplay, it's going to have to be games that are like over the internet. So, you know, anything that could be played cooperatively over the internet is what we'll be playing. And the bottom line is, the vast majority of games are these days cooperative. It's only when John and I play like a throwback game that doesn't have that online capability that we have to really be here for couch co-op. So we'll both have to buy a copy of the game in that case, but we're going to be doing a lot of probably online co-op gameplay. Now, I never got around to doing the Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen DLC. I just didn't have time. It came out at a week when there was a bunch of other stuff out, and you know, then I went on vacation, so I just haven't had time to do it. I mean, would I like to do it? Maybe. As a filler at some point, but I don't know if anyone's really going to be interested. When I did Dragon's Dogma last year, even then a lot of people weren't interested in the playthrough. They were telling me, you know, it's a repetitive action-based RPG, and it doesn't translate itself well to a good playthrough. If I had a big request to do it, I would, but right now I don't have any plans to do it. Any new statues or figures acquired lately? Besides, you guys have seen Duke Nukem, I'm sure, in a couple channel updates. He's the latest one. And of course you had the Songbird from Bioshock Infinite. I think I have... It's hard to remember. I swear, it's so hard to even remember because the way that those figures work is that they announce them like a year and a half to 2 years in advance. I'm not even joking. Like, I've got figures that I pre-ordered a year and a half ago, haven't given them a second thought, and then all of a sudden I get the email shipping tomorrow, and I'm like, Jesus, I didn't even think about that. I think, I could be wrong, but I think the next two that I have coming up, there's one of Poison Ivy from Batman that was really, really interesting, and I liked it. It was really well done. And I got one, I think that one, I think I still have that one on order. I'm not positive, but that may be coming soon. I think the next one that I have after that, which may be one of the last ones, because as you know, I have no room for them, is Commander Shepard from Mass Effect. I saw it, I was like, oh, that looks fucking cool as hell, and I had to pre-order that one. So I know I have those two on order right now, at least. And I think, if now I'm thinking about it, I think I may also have the Sniper from Team Fortress 2 on order, too. Ugh. A lot of these questions, guys, I already answered. You probably missed the earlier portion of the podcast. Like, for example, people are asking about my thoughts about the Xbox One and specific features of the Xbox One. If you missed the podcast, definitely check out when I archive this on my the King of Hate Vlogs YouTube channel later tonight, because that'll be in there. You'll be able to see and get those answers. The WWE simulations, which were scheduled originally for last week, unfortunately are canceled. These were the Extreme Rules simulations for the pay-per-view that happened this past Sunday. Originally, we were going to do it. We were 100% scheduled to do it on Saturday, but then John called me. He said, listen, I have this really big opportunity to work on Schnozman and Hole Punch this weekend. If I don't do it this weekend, I don't know when I'm going to get this guy again to do these certain scenes to film. So I really need to do this. And even on Monday, I'm going to need to edit all week because he's really pushing for this June 2nd release date for the next episode of Schnozman, a Hole Punch. And knowing all the problems that John has had with that series, with actors dropping out and weather concerns and losing shooting locations, I said, you know what, all right, it's fine. So unfortunately, we had to cancel those pay-per-view simulation matches. However, we will pick up, hopefully, with the next pay-per-view. I already answered the question about the Wolverine Marathon. Maybe you should open up your ears. I keep seeing this guy asking me about, am I going to go in the lab with other characters in Injustice outside of the DLC characters? The answer is there's always the possibility, especially if there's downtime, meaning if there's no new games or if there's only one new game one week and I'm just feeling bored, I'll say, okay, let's try a new character in Injustice. But, I mean, that ship's kind of sailed. I pretty much picked a handful of characters that I was interested in, played with them. And those are the characters that I'll play online if I play online. And, I'm not going to go crazy trying to learn every character. I mean, face it. There are people who, the day that Injustice came out, they sat down, they did video tutorials on every character of Injustice. Every day it's more Injustice, 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 Injustice. This is all they do on YouTube. They do fighting game footage. I'm not like that. So I didn't have the time to sit down and get the expertise and whatever that these guys had. If you're really looking for that in-depth kind of footage, you probably want to go looking for their stuff. But that doesn't mean that I might not pick up a character or two here or there if there is some downtime. Oh, good question. It's coming up soon. In fact, let me find the date so everyone knows. This is a big announcement. June 2nd, okay? So, June 2nd, 2013, just 3 days before YouTube Apocalypse, when everyone's forced into the new shitty one-channel format and no one can find anything and views plummet and ad revenue goes to hell and everyone quits YouTube. Just 3 days before then, Marvel Heroes is being released. This is a Marvel-based MMO online. It plays very similarly to Marvel Ultimate Alliance, and both myself, John Rambo, OJ, and our friend Joe are all very interested in playing it. We've all pre-purchased packs for the game that have unlocked certain characters and certain abilities. So we're very excited for that game, and what we're going to do is be announcing when we're playing, so that if people want to join on and do like the Hate Guild or, the Ramborgia, or whatever we want to call it. Maybe we should think the Hate Ramborgia Alliance or something like that. And we're going to be playing, online. And it would be awesome to have fans show up, and we'll have giant scale epic battles, and we'll crash the fucking servers and destroy the game on launch day, and then make sure that it's, it never comes back up. But no, we are excited for the game, and June 2nd, we are going to be playing it on launch day. And we are going to try to be doing it consistently, at least try to find a schedule where we can play it with each other over time. So that's definitely something to look forward to if you're interested. By the way, it's free to play, so duh, why wouldn't you play it? Oh my god, so many questions just got spammed again. What do I feel about Scorpion being the last Injustice DLC character? I think it's really stupid. I think that they should have saved the spot for another DC character, because they have to understand that, okay, yes, the game was made by the makers of Mortal Kombat. We get that. We get that because the game kind of plays like the last Mortal Kombat. But you're not just appealing to fans of Mortal Kombat. You're also a wide group of people who bought the game who are fans of DC. And so what they should have done was they should have picked another DC Comics character. If Scorpion is the last DLC character, that's really unfortunate, because that's just a waste of a spot. It's really dumb. I see a question about, when I travel to other states, am I open to meeting with fans who maybe can't meet up with me at conventions and stuff? Well, let me put it this way. When I'm traveling to other states, if there is a public thing that I'm going to, like, for example, when John and I went to New York for WrestleMania, okay, we actually did meet up with fans who were attending the same Ring of Honor TV taping that we were at, and we talked a little bit. I autographed some stuff that they'd brought, just in anticipation that we were going to be there. So that was cool. That's a cool opportunity. And we're out, and we're at a wrestling show. That's fine. The difference is, like, if I'm at dinner with Panda Lee at a restaurant, and we're private, we're having fun, and someone came up, oh, it's Dark Side Phil, here, sign this for me, start throwing shit at me, that's different. It's one thing if you bump into me, oh, it's Dark Side Phil, hey, what's up, good to meet you. It's a different thing if you try to impose yourself upon me and kind of like, interfere with my vacation. Now, that's never happened before. And a perfect example would be coming up next month. SGC is not the case. This is a convention. The reason I'm going is to spend time with fans and to meet up with fans. So by no means next month, if you see me out and you want to say hi, or you want to, grab me, shake my hand, you want something signed, that's the time to do it. But if I'm just out on a trip somewhere and you catch me at a random place, chances are I'm probably on a schedule. It's incidentally, when I was in Philadelphia, I was on a tight schedule because I had to pick up Leanna's mom from the train station, had to get us to one place, get us out to get to the next place so we can make it here for dinner. It was a pretty hectic trip. So if you do see me like that, feel free to say hi, but don't expect me to dedicate an hour of my time to spend with you, because unfortunately I'm probably running around with personal stuff going on. All right, just a few more questions, and we're going to wrap it up. I wanted to end around 10:30, so probably one or two more questions, and then we'll finish it up here. Would I consider going back to Splinter Cell Conviction? Well, the actual answer to that is I was enjoying Splinter Cell Conviction when I was playing it, and that incidentally was when I got the false copyright strikes, which were not correct, from Ubisoft. They were someone impersonating an Ubisoft employee, and when I got it cleared up, by the time I got it cleared up, it had been like over a week, and there were already other new releases to play, and I just never got back to playing Splinter Cell. What was it, Splinter Cell Blacklist or whatever it was. It's something I would consider playing if enough people wanted to see me play it. Being that there's already a new Splinter Cell coming out later this year, maybe it's a good thing to play beforehand, maybe not, I don't know. At this point, I'm going to be honest with everyone. At this point, I don't know what people want to see me play. Because it seems like no matter what I play, unless it's like a AAA giant release that was very highly rated, such as BioShock Infinite or Injustice, it seems like people don't give it the benefit of the doubt. They're like, oh, Phil's playing RE Revelations? Well, that's just a port of a handheld game. I'm not going to bother watching that. Oh, he's playing Uncharted? That game's old. I'm not going to bother watching that. You know what I mean? And it's like, but I really do feel that there's quality and entertainment in these playthroughs I'm doing. I just don't think people are giving them a fair shake. That's why I'm doing this new poll on YouTube. I hope the results actually accurately represent what people want to see me play. It's going to be a shame if we get thousands and thousands of votes and I play the game, oh, I didn't want to see him play that. It's like, oh my God! I'm trying to be, like I said earlier, I'm trying to be interactive with you fans and your viewers. I made a pledge to you earlier this year that I wanted to be more interactive with you. I wanted to listen to your opinions more, and that was my goal for this year. But it wasn't working out those past few polls, so I'm really hoping that this next poll works out. And Splinter Cell Blacklist is something I will consider putting onto one of those future polls for downtime. All right, last question. Let me pick a last question here. Trying to pick the perfect question for the last one. It's tough. Ha! Alright, I got a good one, and this is a great question. What do I feel when people blame video games for people actually doing violent acts? You know, this scapegoat syndrome has been around for quite some time, and the thing is right now that video games are the biggest thing when it comes to maybe a violent content. Because I'll tell you right now, before video games were the scapegoat for all these violent things going on in the world, it was movies. And then before movies, it was television. And then before television, it was music. And then before music, it was comic books. And then before comic books, it was regular books. And then before that, it was art and paintings. Like, this has happened throughout the entire history of creativeness. Is that when there's something happens that's just inexplicable, we have to find a scapegoat because our minds can't wrap around the fact that some things happen in life for no fucking reason. So, we have to find a scapegoat, and the scapegoat right now, oh, it's because people are playing violent video games, and it's desensitizing them, and it's training them to be cold killers, and it's preposterous. And if you actually listen to the people who say these things, they've got zero research, they've got zero facts, They've got no logical argument for it. It's just pure emotion because they're so upset that something horrible has happened that they need to explain it. They need to tie it to someone and make someone the blame. They have to play the blame game, not, okay, it's a horrible thing that happened, let's move on and see if we can find ways to prevent it. Instead, it's the blame game. Who was involved? And we have to point fingers and we have to be negative about everything rather than actually try to be positive and create solutions. So, if anyone ever tells you that someone did something because they played a violent video game, you just go show them the next, the last violent movie, the last violent anything. Because the bottom line is everyone's desensitized to violence at this point. Everything you see on TV, you see people cutting up fucking bodies, and we've been seeing this. Zombies are the hottest thing, and all zombies do is rip your fucking body parts apart. So if I see people on a daily basis ripping body parts apart, what is, is there any shock factor to seeing it in real life? Probably not. So, it's pretty much what you would expect. But no, video games are not the reason behind any of this. That's a preposterous thing to say. And again, no facts, just raw emotion. It's laughable when you hear these people start talking about it and they have nothing really behind it to say. Okay, so that is it for the very first inaugural beta version of Hate Live, my new podcast. I hope that you've enjoyed it. I hope that you found it entertaining. Keep in mind that by no means am I saying that this is going to be every Thursday. This was the beta run. We'll see what happens next week and if I feel like doing another one. I'm interested to see how this is well received on YouTube as well. Being that it is the first episode that I'm ever doing. It's going to take quite a long time to upload this episode because it's an hour and a half long, but that's pretty much the estimated time that I expected it to run. So I'm actually within my expected time frame. Just so everyone knows, this will be uploaded to YouTube so that if you did miss any portion of this broadcast, if you're watching on Twitch, you can catch up and watch it on YouTube on the King of Hate Vlogs channel. So definitely check it out over there. Next week, I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing it or not. We'll see. Next week, there's 2 new releases. That's why I say that. There's 2 actual new game releases. Plus, next week, so usually I do Ask the King. So what I may do is have a bye week where I don't do a podcast, but maybe I'll live stream Ask the King next week. I think that would be neat to live stream, answer forum questions, answer Twitter, Facebook questions, and to maybe even take a couple questions from the chat in Ask the King. And so this couch may be my new location for Ask the King because this is where I put my webcam. But alright, so that's it. Thank you everyone for joining the inaugural beta broadcast. What I'm going to try to do is over the next week or 2 learn transitions, get some video packages together that I can run during the commercials or as an intro, and get a lot of more stuff together. But again, I do want to say special thanks to Hazard for making this cool border for the show so far, and thank you. Please give me feedback when this goes up live on YouTube. Please by all means give me feedback on the video so I know whether or not you enjoyed it. Okay, thank you everyone. I will see you later. Have a good night. Peace out.